Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Brandon Minnick, and in this session, we'll be talking about consuming GraphQL in C#. I'm really excited to be here with you today because I gave a similar talk here at GraphQL Conf back in 2019, I think it was, and things have gotten so much better. It's weird in the C# world. Not a lot of people know about GraphQL still, which I find crazy, because there's millions of developers using GraphQL everywhere in every other language, but it seems like C#'s still catching up. But the good news is we now have one of the best libraries out of any platform. So I'm really excited to show that off for you today. Before we get going, though, I want to highlight there's two links that you'll see at the bottom of just about every slide today. On the bottom left, this is my Twitter handle. If you have any questions or you want to catch up afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. My direct messages are always open. And on the bottom right, this is a web page where you can find everything that we're going to cover today. So don't worry about memorizing anything. Just as long as you take out your phone, snap a picture of the slides, that QR code will take you to the same place. But codetraveler.io/C#-GraphQL is where you can find the slides. It's where you can find a recording of a similar talk I gave a couple months ago. So if you have any friends and family who couldn't be here today, or some coworkers that want to learn more about GraphQL and C#, you can send it to them. Plus, we've only got like 30 minutes together today, so we'll be moving quick. There's a lot of code we'll be looking at. It's all open source. I've already uploaded it all to GitHub, and you can also find the links there as well. And as well as there's other links to get started with the libraries we're talking about today. Okay, well, what library is there? Well, there's two main libraries for C# developers. We have Strawberry Shake, and we have GraphQL Client. Now, just looking at these numbers, you might have the first impression that we're talking about GraphQL Client today because it's got 17.3 million downloads on NuGet, which is incredible. But actually, that's the old one. So the new one is called Strawberry Shake, and we're really lucky to have this library as C# developers because, like I said, not only is it the most performant library for .NET, but it also outperforms similar client libraries for like Python, Rust, JavaScript. GraphQL Client still works really well. It was the first one. It came out back in 2017. Strawberry Shake, I think, debuted in 2021. So GraphQL Client's got a bit of a head start, but as we'll see, Strawberry Shake is really cool because it generates all the code for us. So we can basically just use our GraphQL knowledge, and then Strawberry Shake will essentially reverse engineer everything from our schema to our queries, and then just make C# models, make C# methods, add extension methods so we can use it for dependency injection. It's really incredible. GraphQL Client still works really well. If you have an app that's already using it and you've already written all the code, that's great. I have one of those myself that, yeah, maybe someday I'll go and replace it with Strawberry Shake. But we'll say problem, in air quotes, with GraphQL Client is it's just very verbose. So you're going to write a lot of code. You have to create those C# models yourself. So when you deserialize the JSON, you need a C# model for that. You'll have to write the code for your queries yourself. If you're building a server, you have to write the resolvers yourself. And so you end up still writing a lot of code. And actually, my first time, I'm a mobile app developer. I make iOS and Android apps in C# using Xamarin and .NET MAUI. So my first time, I was creating an app that published to the App Store. So production app using GraphQL. I actually chose not to use GraphQL Client. I mean, this was before Strawberry Shake existed. But I ended up just hand-rolling everything myself because GraphQL Client is so verbose, and you do have to duplicate some code in certain places. But no need to worry about that, because today we'll be talking about Strawberry Shake, and hopefully we'll help get those NuGet downloads up, because it truly is the best. So before we get going, I do work at AWS, so I want to show you off a quick tool we've got called AWS AppSync. If you haven't heard of it, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite tools on AWS because it allows us to just quickly spin up a GraphQL backend just with a couple clicks of the mouse. So for example, I can say create API, and if you already have, say, a DynamoDB instance in AWS, you can it'll reverse engineer your GraphQL API for you, or you can say design from scratch. And if we just name the API, like we could call it something like authors, and then here, all in the browser, we could create our author type and give them an ID, make sure it's required, and every author is going to have a name, and that's required. And then it'll also spin up a DynamoDB table and connect this to our API for us. And so as soon as we click Create API here, we'll now have a fully functional API that we can access from anywhere in the world that's got a DynamoDB backend, and we can add values. And so it's this really, really cool tool that I've been using a lot lately for proof of concepts where I don't want to manually create or write code for a GraphQL backend. And that's actually what I did today. So I have an app here called Strawberry Maui. All the code is done. This is that website I was pointing you to earlier, and I'll give you a chance to grab this link again before we're finished. But you can find the app that we'll be essentially rebuilding today. It's an app I made in .NET MAUI, so it runs on iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, and uses this AppSync backend. And just a one-page app to display some contacts. So here in my AppSync backend, I'll show you. So it's already generated this schema for me. So I just did the same thing we went through a minute ago. And if I clicked create, it would auto-generate this GraphQL schema for me. We can actually run queries here in the browser. So if we wanted to, we could update, delete, create a person. We could use the mutations, or we could make a query here. And this is totally live. So for example, I can open up Postman, and let's see, if I punch in our GraphQL backend, and then it does have an API key down here, so let's tell Postman about that too. Tell it to go fetch my schema. And now we can interact with this GraphQL backend that we built using no code, thanks to AWS AppSync. So here is the schema we'll be playing around with today, just to show you what all this looks like. So basically, I just have a list of people. It's my contacts. And so when I fetch that list, it gives me back all names, emails, birth dates. And so this is what we want to do in our app, in our C# code today. So let's actually jump into Visual Studio here. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because there's some copy pasting we're going to do to get started. So these are the getting started instructions on Strawberry Shake. They're made by this company called Chili Cream. So it's a funny name. The company name's called Chili Cream. The client library is called Strawberry Shake. If you build a server with Chili Cream library, that library is called HotChocolate. So lots of funny names, but like I said, it's by far the best. Actually, the guy who makes this, the creator of Chili Cream, is here. His name's Michael Stabe. He's actually on the board for the GraphQL Foundation. So no concerns about this. It's all open source. It's not going anywhere. He's built his company off of it, and it's totally free to use. So the other really cool thing is Michael's one of those crazy guys that really likes to go real deep in performance. So I'll show you what some of this generated code looks like, but when you look at it, there's a lot of spans and pointers and all the stuff we're not supposed to do in C#, but he does it because you can get way better performance improvements using it. But I digress. Let's add in Strawberry Shake to our Maui app. So what we're going to do is, let's see if we can launch the terminal right here in Visual Studio. There we go. And I'm just going to copy paste some of these instructions. So what he did was create a new .NET tool called strawberryshake.tools. And you'll see in a minute why we're doing this. And it's because the way Strawberry Shake works, so just in case you're curious, these other steps are to create a new project. So if we had a file new project, in this case, it's showing us how to do a Blazor project. We already got one spun up, so we're not going to do that. And then this is to install the NuGet packages, which I've also done ahead of time to save us a little time today. But once we've got all that set up, we go back to the command line, and we point our GraphQL client to our GraphQL API, or GraphQL backend, and it's going to pull down the schema for us and start generating all this C# code. So let's go ahead and type all this out. So we'll say .NET GraphQL init, and then let's copy our URL. And then what we'll do is we'll name it. So Strawberry Shake, you'll see, generates its own version of HTTP client, or its own implementation of it, which ironically is also faster than Microsoft's implementation. So if you were to try to write this code yourself, Strawberry Shake is still faster, because like I said, the guy that makes it, he's performance crazy. He's one of those, he's too smart for his own good. So let's see, what are we gonna name it? I'm gonna cheat, because actually, I already wrote some code. So we'll name it Contacts Client. We'll point it to my app called Strawberry Demo, or Strawberry Maui, rather. And then we also have to tell it that we have a header called X API key. And let's copy paste that API key here. And hopefully I've typed everything right. Oh, awesome. Whew. It's a pain when you type something wrong to go back and find it. So we can see already it said that it downloaded our schema and started configuring the local client. So this is already where some of the magic's starting to happen with Strawberry Shake. So what it's done specifically, let's open up this in VS Code. Visual Studio for Mac likes to hide some files sometimes. All right. So actually, it wasn't hiding them from me. It just put them where I wasn't expecting it. I'm going to move these out into the main folder here. There we go. So what it just did, like I said, it went and fetched the schema from our GraphQL backend. So it went out to AWS. It said, give me the schema. It downloaded it. So now we can see the same object types, the queries that we already have set up for our GraphQL backend. And this is also how it's going to essentially reverse engineer the C# code for us. And we'll see that in a minute. And then we also have this configuration file here. So I'm only going to tweak it just a little bit so I can specify a namespace, because this is going to generate code for us. So I want it to have the same namespace as my code. And the last thing we're going to do, we're going to add one more new file, and we're essentially going to write our GraphQL query. So let's see. Let me cheat again to make sure I don't. Yeah, and there's the files. Great. Let's see. So I named it get all people. So we'll create a new file called getallpeople.graphql. So this will be a query, and I'm just going to be lazy and copy paste the same one that we already figured out earlier. Avoid those typos, hopefully. All right. So actually, let's jump back to Visual Studio for Mac now that we can see all the files here. So again, what I've done is just initialized our Strawberry Shake client. So there we go. So remember, it was .NET GraphQL init. We pointed to our backend. It fetched the schema. Then I added in this one .graphql file called getAllPeople with our exact GraphQL query that we want. And so now I can say .NET GraphQL generate, and it just generated all the code we need. So this is really, really cool. So if we look, there's a new folder here called generated. And this is basically a sample app, right? It's like a hello world app. It's one page, pretty simple. But look at all the code, like hundreds of lines of code, almost 1,000 lines of code it's generating for us that we didn't have to write ourselves. So right away, this is the big reason why I love Strawberry Shake, because I didn't have to do any of this. Whereas in the app that I published at the App Store, I've probably written 10,000 lines of code just for the app to interact with the GraphQL backend. And I'll show you how we connect all this up. So the first thing we want to do, I'll tell you what, let's do a little clean. Hopefully these red squiggles will go away. Visual Studio for Mac will catch up in a bit. But the first thing we do is in our builder services, we want to add this for dependency injection, right? So what's really cool is it generates this extension method for us. And again, this is, if I go to the definition, this is in the auto-generated file. And it creates a HTTP client that we're going to use for our GraphQL backend. So we'll call it our GraphQL client. I named it contacts client since this is the GraphQL API contains all my contacts. And just like we would with any other HTTP client, we add it to our builder services, and we can configure it. So here I've pointed it to the AppSync backend. I've added the API key to a header. And then the only thing I've done, and this actually has nothing to do with GraphQL, but if you make mobile apps like I do, highly recommend this. There's a cool library I'm using. So obviously strawberryshake.maui, but there's another one called Poly that is really cool because with mobile apps, you never really can rely on your user's internet connection. Like maybe they're on a bus and they're trading off between Wi-Fi and cell phone towers. So a lot of times we have to automatically retry if that first HTTP request fails. And Poly allows us to do that. So I've just added in this transient error policy. So if somebody's on the bus trying to use my app, it tells it to wait and retry. And I tell it to do it 3 times, and I have this exponential back off here. So every time it fails, it'll wait 2 to the power of the number of attempts. So the first time, it'll be attempt number 0, so it'll wait 2 seconds, or 2 to the 0th is 1 second. And then the second time will be 2 to the 1st, so it'll wait 2 seconds, try it again. And then if it fails 3 times, it'll just kick it back to me. But like I said, nothing to do with GraphQL, but really, really cool, and want to share that with you in case you're also into cool libraries like I am. So, sorry, go ahead. Poly, P-O-L-L-Y, yeah. And again, all this code's open source, so you can always download the repo, check out the NuGet packages on GitHub. So after we added in our client, what we can do, I made this file called a GraphQL service. So want to show off how our contacts client works. So this is this iContacts client. This is what we just injected or added into our service collection for dependency injection. And if we want to make a call to our GraphQL API, it's super easy. We just say contacts client dot, and in this case, I'll say get all people. And you'll notice that that is exactly the name that I named my .graphql query. And then we can just say execute async, and we're done. So it's already written all the code to make that query. It's already written all the code to deserialize what comes back and turn it into C# from JSON for us. And we don't have to really do anything else. So again, this is really, really cool because if you've ever written code to consume C# in a client application, this is usually when you start writing queries, is when you usually start having to hard code strings and things start to get ugly code-wise because C#'s really good with, or baked into C# and .NET. It's really good with REST and deserializing stuff into JSON, or out of JSON and serializing stuff into JSON, but it doesn't really know how to serialize things into a GraphQL format, but that's okay, because Strawberry Shake does. So we'll have our contacts client, and then any GraphQL query mutation will appear here. And then to run it, we can just call execute async. We get a response back from the server. And so in this case, I just say ensure there's no errors. So just like with any old HTTP response message, we want to make sure that it completed successfully before we move on to the next line of code. And then all I'm doing here is I'm turning it into a new person. So just converting some things so to make it easier to consume with my app. And then I turn it into a frozen set. This is another cool thing that has nothing to do with GraphQL, but in C# 12, this is brand new in .NET 8, they came out with this new type called frozen set, which is basically a list that can never change. And so if you've heard of immutable list or iRead-only list, those already exist in .NET. But in .NET 8, they're coming out with frozen set because there was always tricks where you could still modify an immutable list by changing an object that's in the list or changing references and being sneaky. So frozen set is what I like to use now because it makes sure that the data that comes back from my API is frozen. It's always going to be that pure data. Nobody can modify it. That way I can ensure that I don't accidentally change something that comes back from an API or a database. All right, and then let's see, what else do we want to show off real quick? Let's see if we can run it. If not, if I've made some typos, we can just jump to the, the finished code. That's not a problem. Oh yeah, there's some typos. All right, let's jump over to the main branch. Let it all reload just to show you what's going on here. One more try. All right, looks like he's just mad at me today, but that's okay, because we already have the app running here. So this is what the app looks like. It's going out and fetching everything from our GraphQL backend. When we, a bunch of my code disappeared. Good old Visual Studio for Mac. I guess that's why Microsoft's finally getting rid of it. So all we had to do was just write in a couple command line. Again, just copy pasted from the getting started instructions here. The big one is this initialization one that tells the local GraphQL tooling to go out, fetch that schema, bring it back, and then once you have it, you can modify. There's also additional things we can do in that JSON config file. But that's about it, because then it generates all the code for us, hundreds of lines of code, thousands of lines of code. I wonder if, let's try one more thing. Tell it to generate it again. One more time. Nah, it's too mad at me. That's okay. So there we go. All right, so if you haven't had a chance yet, this is where you can find the resources that we just talked about today. So this is where you can find a longer recording where I go a little bit deeper into GraphQL and C#. This is where you can find the code. I have a couple open source samples here. Like we've got this app that we were just playing around with right now. And then I also have one called HotChocolate GraphQL, because like I mentioned, HotChocolate is the name of the backend server code. So if you're going to create a server in GraphQL for C#, HotChocolate's the library you want to use, made by Chili Cream, who also makes Strawberry Shake. And so in here, it's a little bit more complicated. It's got a mobile app and a backend, but you can find out how everything all works together and share it with your friends, share it with your coworkers who maybe couldn't be here today. And then all these resources about getting started with Strawberry Shake, getting started with HotChocolate. If you want to learn more about GraphQL, how to do stuff in Postman with GraphQL, list of awesome GraphQL stuff, it's all here for you. And thank you very much.